The wind over the Pelennor tastes of ash and salt, and the white city is burning when the first black sails appear. Men on the walls squint through smoke and tears, praying for silver banners, for the white tree, for the broken sword raised high. Instead, they see spikes of iron, racks of chained corpses, and the red eye rippling on torn black canvas, drawing closer with every heartbeat. If you enjoy these deep dives into alternate timelines of Middle-earth, tap like and subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Tell me in the comments which realm you would have stood for in this war, Gondor, Rohan, or somewhere far in the north. Far away from the choking smoke of Minas Tirith, the choice that led to those black sails hangs in the damp air of a mountain vale like a word not spoken. Night presses close upon the company that has ridden from Helm's Deep. The dim-holed road lies before them, a dark wound in the roots of the White Mountains. A chill breath seems to seep from the stone archway, and even the horses roll their eyes in foam, sensing what lies beneath the Duimorberg. Gimli's beard is wet with mist as he peers into that arch. Legolas stands very still, his eyes distant, as if listening to something that the others cannot hear. Behind them, the gray company waits in uneasy silence, their cloaks gray as ghosts, their faces stern but strained. Halbarad watches Aragorn. Aragorn stands beneath the looming stone, Anduril at his hip, Elrond's words echoing in his mind. The shadow of destiny weighs upon him like a cloak that has grown suddenly heavy. Through the paths of the dead, Gandalf had said, lies the road that only the true heir of Isildur may tread and return. Only. The word had sounded like a doom as much as a promise. Now, with the mountain's breath cold upon his face, Aragorn's hand tightens on the hilt of his sword. In the dark beyond the arch, there is a sense of watching, of hunger long denied. The hairs rise on his arms. The weight of ages presses, and with it the memory of Isildur's failure, the memory of weakness, of pride, of a hand that did not cast the ring into the fire. He hears another voice, softer, from long ago, Elrond in Imladris, speaking not of prophecy, but of choice. The shadow takes what men give it, Estelle. It cannot force. There is always another path, though it may be harder or darker or longer. Remember that. Another path. Aragorn looks back the way they have come, toward Rohan, toward the wide plains and the banners of the Riddermark, toward Theoden, riding to war with what strength he can muster, toward Minas Tirith, burning already in his mind's eye. He sees in his thought the stone streets of the White City running with blood, hears the horns of Mordor, feels the weight of every life that hangs on his decision. If he fails in the dark beneath the mountain, there will be no help for Gondor, none. Aragorn, Legolas says quietly, not in counsel, but in warning. The elf feels the tremor in the air, the gathering of something old and restless. Gimli mutters, I like not the look of that road. Yet I will go where you go, lad. Only say the word. Halbarad's voice is hoarse. We are with you, my lord. To whatever end the title cuts, my lord not king, he has worn many names, but that one has never sat easily upon him. To claim it now, he must walk into the dark and command the restless dead, bind them to his will as Isildur did. He must repeat the old sin in hope of a better end. A gull cries high above, far from the sea, its voice carried strangely on the wind. It sounds like a warning. Aragorn closes his eyes. He sees again the Palantir, the burning eye, the cruel voice that had sought to break him. He had shown himself to Sauron, and in that moment of defiance, he had felt the enemies will recoil, then reach, seeking to grasp him. Sauron knows he comes. Sauron waits to walk into the paths now, into a place where the living are thin as cobwebs over the stone, where the strength of flesh and blood is small, would be to walk into a trap that Sauron may already have laid in spirit, if not in body. If the Dark Lord turns his gaze upon him in that narrow place where there is no room to flee or fight, what then? He opens his eyes, and when he speaks, his voice is low but clear. No, the word falls like a stone into a still pool, sending ripples through every heart that hears it. Gimli blinks. What was that? Aragorn's gaze does not leave the dark arch. We will not take this road. Halbarad steps forward. My lord, this is the path foretold. Elrond spoke. Elrond spoke of a choice, Aragorn answers, and his tone is sharper than he intends. He softens it. Not of a chain. I am not Isildur, to bind the dead once more to my will. I will not spend our hope on a road that may be a snare of Sauron's making. Legolas studies him, the pale light of the stars reflected in his eyes. You fear that he waits for you there. I know he watches, Aragorn says. He has felt me. He will look where he expects me to tread. Let him peer into darkness and find nothing. Let him waste his malice on empty stone. Gimli scowls. Then where, in the name of all the beards of my ancestors, do we go? We have no army, Aragorn, only a handful of rangers, an elf, and a dwarf. I do not fancy our chances against the hosts of Mordor on open ground. Aragorn turns from the mountain. The air seems to ease as he steps away from the shadow of the arch, though a low whisper stirs behind him. Like a sigh of thwarted hunger, there is another road into Gondor, he says. Along the coasts, the corsairs of Umbar will sail against Minas Tirith. If we cannot command the dead to seize their ships, we must reach the southern fiefs before Mordor's hand closes upon them. We must rally what strength remains in Lebanon, in Lossarnach, in Belfalas. We must become the shield that Sauron does not expect. Halbarad's jaw tightens. We are few. Few can move swiftly, Aragorn replies, and we are not wholly without friends. The Dunedain have kin in the south, though long sundered. There are still lords of Gondor who remember the line of Elendil. He lifts his face to the sky, where a thin moon gleams above the peaks. We ride south, hard and fast. We will gather what we can. We will meet the corsairs with living men, not shades. If we fail, then we fail as men, by our own strength and our own choice. Legolas inclines his head, a slow, grave motion. Then I am with you, Aragorn, son of Arathorn. Let the dead keep their silence. Gimli grunts, and I would rather die with my axe in my hands than with my wits frozen in some cursed tunnel. Halbarad hesitates only a heartbeat longer, then bows his head. As you will, my lord. The gray company rides where you lead. Behind them, in the dark throat of the mountain, something stirs. A cold wind sighs from the depths, tasting of old oaths and of broken promises. The whisper rises, a murmur of voices that have forgotten language, only hunger and waiting. Then it fades. The heir of Isildur has turned away. The dead remain uncalled. Far across the land, in the black land of Mordor, a vast will twists, sensing a thread of fate slip from its grasp. In the high tower of Barad-dûr, Sauron's attention tightens upon the west. He has felt the challenge of Aragorn through the Palantir, the bold revealing of the sword that was broken. He has laid his plans accordingly, dispatching not only his great armies against Minas Tirith, but also a shadow of his thought toward the Dimholt, to trouble and confound any who would dare to wake the oath-breakers. Now, like a spider feeling a tremor on a web that does not come, he pauses. The paths remain quiet. There is a moment of cold curiosity, then a thin, cruel amusement. The heir of Isildur has turned aside from the one path that might have given him an edge. Men are as weak and wayward as ever. Very well. Sauron's gaze shifts southward, beyond the Anduin, toward the long coasts of Gondor and the dark sails mustering in Umbar. In Minas Tirith, the beacons still burn. Their flames have drawn Rohan to ride, but they have also marked the city as a prize. The southern fiefs, already harried by raiders and spies, grow more isolated with each passing day. If the corsairs break through unopposed, they will not come as mere plunderers, but as the spearhead of a southern assault, guided by captains who bear gifts from the Dark Lord. Among those captains is one who knows the ways of Gondor's coasts, who has sailed her harbors and studied her tides. A black ship cuts through the night sea, its prow carved in the shape of a leering serpent. On its deck stands a tall figure in black and crimson, his hair bound back with silver, his eyes on the dim line of land ahead. His name is Caranthor, once of Dol Amroth, long thought lost in a storm off the coast of Harad. He had not drowned. He had been found. The memory of his rescue is a smear of heat and darkness in his mind, but the gifts he received are very clear: a new ship, a crew of hardened corsairs, and a ring of black iron on his finger, set with a shard of some dark crystal that never catches the light, only drinks it. When he turns the ring, he hears whispers. When he dreams, he sees a great eye, and in serving that eye, he has found power, purpose, and a cold, fierce joy. Lord Caranthor, a corsair calls, his voice rough with salt and smoke. The scouts report the coasts of Lebanon are poorly guarded. The southern beacon towers burn, but the harbors are quiet. Gondor's eyes are all turned north. Caranthor smiles, a thin curve of the mouth that does not touch his eyes. Then we will be their awakening. He looks toward the south as well, where other black sails loom in the darkness, a fleet gathering like a storm. Among them, on a broader, heavier ship, there is a presence that does not belong to men. In the hold of that ship, in a chamber hung with black curtains that reek of strange incense, a Nazgul sits motionless. The ring-wraith does not feel the roll of the sea or the sting of the salt air. It feels only the pull of its master's will, drawing it toward Gondor's soft underbelly. It is not the Witch King he rides with the great host against Minas Tirith. This is another, perhaps once a prince of the south, now a hollow thing in a tattered cloak, its crown invisible, its eyes empty. Its task is simple: ensure that the southern shield of Gondor breaks utterly and does not rise again. On the plains of Rohan, the Rohirrim ride. Theoden's banner flies in the dawn wind, the white horse on green, streaming above a host that has ridden through the night. Hooves drum the earth, breath steams in the chill air, and the sound of many voices singing low and fierce carries across the grass. At the king's side rides Eomer, his eyes alight with grim purpose. Behind them, Éowyn rides disguised, and with her Merry the Hobbit, clinging to a saddle he was never meant to bear. The weight of their choice presses upon them, but they ride because there is no other choice. Gandalf is not with them. He has ridden ahead, bearing Pippin to Minas Tirith, and there he now stands upon the walls, watching the darkness gathering on the Pelennor. He does not know that in the mountain vale of the Dwy Morberg, Aragorn has turned aside from the road that in another tale he would have taken. He does not know that the southern coasts lie nearly bare, that the corsairs sail with a Nazgul among them, and that the dead will not come. Yet some unease pricks him. As the first stones fly from the engines of Mordor, as the great ram Grond is dragged forward, as the sky over Osgiliath burns, Gandalf looks to the south, toward the faint line where the Anduin curves away, and wonders why his heart feels so heavy. In the vale beneath the Duimorberg, the Grey Company wheels their horses and rides, not into the mountain, but away from it. They ride south, following narrow paths that only rangers know, skirting the edges of Gondor's realm. Fields lie untended, many of their folk having fled to Minas Tirith or to hidden refuges in the hills. Smoke rises from some villages, thin and gray, from hearths that still burn. From others, it rises black, from roofs that have been torched. Twice in the first days, they come upon bands of orcs, stragglers from some larger host, raiding and burning. Twice they fall upon them like a storm, and Durrell blazing in Aragorn's hand, the Grey Company's arrows swift and deadly. In one such village, they find a child hiding beneath a cart, his face streaked with ash and tears. His parents lie nearby, their hands still clasped, their eyes open to the sky. Gimli lifts the cart with a grunt and hauls the boy out. The child stares at Aragorn, at the sword, at the gray cloaks. "Are you from the city?" he whispers. "From Minas Tirith?" Aragorn kneels, the weight of the moment pressing upon him. "No," he says gently. "We are from far away. From the north." The boy's lip trembles. "Will the city hold?" Aragorn hesitates. In another road, another tale, he would answer with certainty, buoyed by the knowledge that he had a secret army of the dead at his back, that he would come to the city's aid in the black ships, turning despair into hope. Here, he has only a handful of men and the knowledge that the corsairs sail unopposed. "We will do all that we can," he says. It is not an answer. It is all he has. They bury the dead. Though time presses, and Legolas sings a low song in a tongue the child does not know, Halbarad finds a woman still living, though her breath is shallow, and he tends her wounds with what herbs he carries. Gimli helps mend a broken door, his great hands gentle with the wood. The Grey Company moves on, but something stays with them. The way the child had watched Aragorn ride away, hope and fear tangled in his gaze. Aragorn rides at the head, his jaw set, his eyes on the south. He has chosen this road. There is no turning back. In Minas Tirith, Denethor sits upon the steward's chair, his mind fraying. The assault on Osgiliath has driven Faramir back, wounded and weary, and Denethor's grief has curdled into despair. The Palantir in the Tower of Ecthelion has shown him much. The black banners of Mordor, the size of the host that comes, and in brief, tantalizing flashes, the ships of the corsairs upon the sea. He has seen no sign of the heir of Isildur, no white banner with the tree and the 7 stars. No broken sword reforged, the hope that Gandalf had spoken of, the hope that had glimmered faintly in his heart when he first heard of a ranger called Thorongil in his youth, has guttered. He does not know that Aragorn rides not toward the city, but away from it, that his choice has already begun to reshape the war. On the walls, Pippin stands beside Baragond, peering out at the darkness. "Do you think they will come?" Pippin asks. "The riders of Rohan?" Baragond nods, though his eyes are shadowed. "They are men of their word. They will come, though it be through fire and blood." Pippin swallows. "And others?" Gandalf said there might be help from unexpected places. Baragond glances at him. "In these days, Master Halfling, I will take help from anywhere." from the north, from the south, from the very stones of the city, if they would rise and fight. But I have heard no tidings of such aid. He does not say what he thinks, that the south is lost, that the corsairs will ravage the coasts, that no help will come from that quarter. On the plains outside the city, the hosts of Mordor gather. Trolls drag engines of war into place. The Witch King rides forward, his crown a black shadow, his mount shrieking. He raises his sword, and a great cry rises from the throats of orcs and men and beasts. The siege of Minas Tirith begins. Far to the south, in the Bay of Belfalas, the first black sails are sighted. At Dol Amroth, the gulls wheel and cry above white walls and tall towers. The knights of the Swan stand watch, their armor bright, their banners bearing the silver swan ship on blue. The sea wind carries the scent of salt and tar, and beneath it, a faint tang of smoke. Prince Imrahil stands upon the seaward wall, his cloak whipping about him. His eyes are keen, his jaw firm. He has already sent a great part of his strength to Minas Tirith, answering the steward's call. What remains is valiant, but not great in number. He had hoped, perhaps vainly, that the corsairs would be delayed, that the main thrust of Mordor's assault would fall upon the city first. That hope dies as he sees the dark line of ships on the horizon growing larger. Beside him, an old captain squints into the glare. That is no mere raiding party, my prince. That is a fleet. Imrahil nods once. So be it. We will give them a welcome they will not forget. He turns, his voice carrying along the wall. Sound the horns. Man the harbor defenses. Send word to the inland lords. The storm is upon us. In the villages along the coasts of Lebanon and Losernach, bells begin to ring. Fishermen drag their boats ashore and take up spears that have not seen use in a generation. Women gather children and old folk, leading them toward the hills. Smoke rises from hastily lit signal fires. The southern shield of Gondor is thin, but it is not empty. Aragorn and the Grey Company see the first of those fires as they crest a low ridge above the river Gilrain. The sun is setting, painting the water with red and gold. Beyond the river, the land slopes gently toward the sea, dotted with farms and small villages. Far off, a faint gleam marks the towers of Dol Amroth. Closer, on a hilltop, a column of smoke twists upward. Aragorn reins in, his heart pounding. They are signaling, he says. The corsairs are seen. Halbarad's face hardens. We are too far to reach the harbor in time. Perhaps, Aragorn says. But we may yet turn the tide inland. If the corsairs land unopposed, they will sweep through the fiefs. We must gather every sword we can. Legolas looks south, his eyes narrowing. I feel a shadow on the sea. Something rides with them that is not of men. Aragorn feels it too, a distant pressure, like the weight of a storm on the horizon. Oh, Nazgul, he says. Sauron does not trust his servants. He sends his own to see the work done, Gimli spits. Then we will give it a warm welcome. I've been wanting to see if an axe can bite into one of those wraiths. Aragorn almost smiles, but the weight of what lies ahead presses too heavily. You may have your chance. Halbarad, we ride for Linhir. The fords of the Gilrain must be held. If the corsairs cannot cross there in force, they will be delayed. Every hour we win is an hour Minas Tirith may yet stand. They ride. The land of Lebanon rolls by under hoof, fields of barley bending in the wind, olive groves, small stone farmhouses with red-tiled roofs. People watch them pass, fear and hope in their eyes. Some men take up old swords and fall in behind the Grey Company, drawn by the sight of the tall, grim rangers and the gleam of Andúril. Who is he? One farmer asks another as they march, breath coming hard. They say he is of the north, the other replies, a chieftain of lost kings. They say his sword was broken and is made again. Will he save us? The second man does not answer. He looks to the south, where black shapes now stain the sea. At Linhir, where the Gilrain meets the larger river Cerney, there is a small town with stone quays and a low wall. It is already in chaos when Aragorn arrives. Refugees from the coastal villages crowd the streets, clutching bundles, children, livestock. The town's garrison, a few hundred men at most, struggles to organize a defense. Boats jostle at the quays, some already casting off, laden with the old and the very young. The sound of horns comes faintly from downstream, and with it the boom of drums. Aragorn rides through the press, his voice cutting through the din. To the walls, all men who can bear arms, to the walls. A captain in a dented helm turns, eyes wild. Who are you to give orders in Linhir? Aragorn swings down from his horse in one smooth motion. He draws Andúril, and the blade sings as it leaves the sheath, catching the fading light in a blaze. I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn, he says, his voice carrying, heir of Isildur and of the kings of Gondor. I claim your allegiance in this hour of need. The captain stares at the sword, at the star upon Aragorn's breast, at the gray cloaks behind him. He hesitates, only a heartbeat, then goes to one knee. My lord, he says, his voice rough, Linhir welcomes you. What are your orders? Hold the fords, Aragorn says. We cannot let the corsairs cross with their full strength. Archers to the walls, spears to the riverbank. Send swift riders to every lord within a day's ride. Tell them the heir of Isildur calls them to arms. We make our stand here. As the men move, as the gray company spreads along the walls, Gimli claps Aragorn on the shoulder. Well, the dwarf says, you did not take the paths of the dead, but you have woken something all the same. Aragorn looks at the men around him, farmers and fishermen, soldiers and rangers, all scrambling to prepare for a battle they have never imagined. He feels the weight of their eyes, their hope. Yes, he says softly, I have. On the river, the first black ships appear. They move slowly, their oars churning the water, their sails furled to better maneuver in the narrow channel. Arrows glint on the rails. Strange drums beat, their rhythm cold and relentless. On the lead ship, Caranthor stands at the prow, his dark hair whipped by the wind. He sees the town, the hastily manned walls, the banners of Gondor fluttering. He smiles. So they have some teeth after all, he murmurs. Good. It would be dull otherwise. Behind him, in the shadowed recess of the deck, the Nazgul stirs. Its presence chills the air, and a low hiss escapes its unseen mouth. Break them, it whispers, its voice like iron scraping stone. Drive them from the river. The south must burn. Caranthor bows his head slightly, the iron ring on his finger cold. As my lord commands, the ships draw nearer. Horns sound from the walls of Linhir, high and desperate. Men notch arrows, hands shaking. Aragorn stands upon the wall, Andúril in his hand, Legolas at his side with bow strung, Gimli near the gate, axe ready. Halbarad moves among the defenders, speaking low words, steadying them. The air is thick with the scent of river water and fear. Aragorn lifts his sword. For Gondor, he cries, for the White City, for the free peoples of Middle-earth, hold this line. The reply is a ragged shout, but it is fierce. The first volley of arrows arcs from the walls, a dark cloud against the reddening sky. On the Pelennor, Grond strikes the gate of Minas Tirith. The great ram, shaped like a wolf's head, wreathed in spells of ruin, smashes into the doors of the city, with a sound like thunder. Each blow shakes the very stones, sending dust raining from the white vaults. Gandalf stands upon the wall, his staff raised, his face pale but resolute. Beside him, Pippin clings to the parapet, eyes wide with terror and awe. "Can they break it?" Pippin whispers. Gandalf's eyes flicker to him, then back to the gate. If they cannot with force, they will with sorcery. The Witch King is not without craft. The Rohirrim are near, but not yet upon the field. The beacons have done their work, but distance and darkness are long. Gandalf thinks of Aragorn, of the broken sword reforged, of the promise of a king returning. He had expected a sign, a banner upon the river, a sudden turning of the tide from the south. He sees nothing but darkness. "Where are you?" he murmurs, not knowing that Aragorn is even now locked in battle far away, that the tide he seeks has broken upon another shore. In the houses of healing, a woman bends over Faramir's still form. Éowyn lies nearby, pale as the sheets, her arm bandaged, her face drawn. The air smells of herbs and blood. The woman's name is Ioreth, and she is old, but her hands are steady. She mutters to herself as she works, half prayer, half complaint. "They say the hands of the king are the hands of a healer," she says to no one in particular, "but there is no king. In Gondor these days, more's the pity. Only old women like me and a few young lads with no sense." Her words drift up, unnoticed, into the rafters, into the stone, into the very bones of the city. Outside, the gate shudders under another blow. At Linhir, the black ships close. Arrows fly from the walls, some finding their marks, some clattering harmlessly off shields and rails. Men cry out and fall. The corsairs return fire, their archers skilled, their shafts tipped with barbed heads that tear flesh and armor alike. Legolas bow sings, his arrows a blur. Each shot finds a target, an archer toppled from a mast, a helmsman slumping over his wheel, a captain clutching at his throat. Yet for every man he fells, 2 more seem to rise. "Too many," he says between breaths. "They are too many? Then we will have to make each one of ours count for 3, Gimli growls, loosing a throwing axe that buries itself in a corsair's chest. The first ship grinds against the riverbank, its hull scraping stone. A gangplank thuds into place, and armored men surge forward, shouting in harsh tongues. Some bear the emblems of Umbar, some the sigils of distant Herod, some no emblem at all. Among them, a tall figure strides, his black and crimson cloak billowing. Caranthor raises his sword, and a strange, cold light flickers along its edge. "Forward!" he cries, "for Umbar, for the Lord of Gifts!" The defenders at the riverbank brace their spears. The clash is brutal. Aragorn watches from the wall for a heartbeat, judging, then turns. "Halbarad, with me!" He races down the steps, and Durrell in his hand. Halbarad follows, the banner of the White Tree and the 7 stars rolled and slung at his back. They reach the gate as it swings open just enough to let them through. Outside, the air is thick with screams and the metallic tang of blood. Aragorn plunges into the fray, and Durrell blazes, cutting through corsair blades as if they were straw. Aragorn moves like a man possessed, each stroke precise, each step sure. He is everywhere at once. Here, parrying a blow aimed at a young soldier's throat. There, driving back a knot of enemies, threatening to break the line. Halbarad fights at his side, his long sword flashing. The Grey Company forms a spear point around them, driving into the heart of the corsair advance. For a moment, the tide seems to turn. Men of Gondor, seeing the standard of Elendil unfurl at last above the melee, find new strength. They cry out, voices hoarse but exultant. The king has come!" Aragorn hears them, and something within him flinches, then steadies. He has not taken the paths of the dead. He has not arrived in black ships to save Minas Tirith in the hour of its greatest need. But here, now, he is what they name him. He will not fail them. On the deck of the lead ship, Caranthor sees the banner and the sword. His eyes narrow. "So," he murmurs, "the heir of Isildur comes to us, not in the city, but in this little river town. How convenient!" He turns to the shadow at his back. "My lord," he says, "shall you not take the field?" The Nazgul's hood tilts, its unseen gaze fixing upon the distant figure of Aragorn, upon the white flame of Andúril. "The heir," it hisses, "the Dúnadan. My master has marked him. A thin, cold joy pulses through its emptiness. To slay this man here, far from the eyes of the White City, would be a cruel stroke. It rises, its form swelling with malice. On the field, a sudden chill falls. Men shiver, their breath frosting in the air, though the day is not so cold. Horses scream and rear. A shadow passes over the sun, though no cloud crosses the sky. Aragorn feels it like a hand of ice upon his heart. "Wraith!" Gimli snarls, his beard bristling. Legolas' eyes darken. "I feel it. It comes. The Nazgul glides from the ship, borne upon a winged beast that shrieks as it takes to the air. Its cry knifes through the noise of battle, sending men to their knees, hands over their ears. Some throw down their weapons and flee. Others stand, but their limbs are heavy, their hearts quailing. The winged creature wheels above the field, the Nazgul's gaze sweeping, seeking, finds Aragorn. A harsh, thin laugh rasps from beneath the hood. Isildur's heir, it calls, its voice carrying unnaturally. "Did you think to hide from us in the backwaters of this failing realm? Did you think the Dark Lord's eye so easily deceived?" Aragorn lifts his face, his jaw clenched. Fear claws at him, but he stands. "I hide from no servant of Sauron," he says, though his voice is nearly swallowed by the shrieks and clash below. "Come down, if you dare, and face me on the ground." The Nazgul's laugh is like broken glass. "Bold words from a mortal. You should have taken the paths of the dead, Erling. There, at least, you would have found company suited to you." It swoops lower, the wind of its passage foul. Men cower. The line wavers. Aragorn looks to Legolas. "Can you bring it down?" The elf's hands tremble on his bowstring. His fair face is drawn, his eyes shadowed. "The terror, it is like a weight," he says through gritted teeth. "But I will try." He draws, every muscle straining, and looses. The arrow flies true, straight toward the shadow under the Nazgul's hood. At the last moment, the winged beast twists, and the arrow skims along its neck, drawing a thin line of black blood. The creature screams, banking away, but it does not fall. The Nazgul's attention snaps to Legolas. "Elf!" it hisses. "You dare!" A wave of despair crashes over the elf, and he staggers, dropping to one knee. Gimli lurches to his side, putting a hand on his shoulder. "Stand, lad," the dwarf growls. "Stand, or I will be very cross indeed." Aragorn feels the weight as well, but something in him pushes back. He has faced this before, on the Pelennor in another tale, at the Black Gate, in the Palantir. He has walked long in shadow. He knows its taste. He takes a step forward, then another. "Your master has no power over me," he calls, each word an effort. "I have seen him, and I do not bow." The Nazgul recoils slightly, sensing in Aragorn a will that does not yield. It remembers another man, long ago, who stood against it with a broken sword, who cut the ring from its master's hand, Isildur. It had feared him in that last hour. It fears this one a little. Fear curdles into rage. Very well, it whispers. If you will not bow, you will break. It raises a long, invisible blade. On the walls of Linhir, a young archer watches, frozen. His name is Marshaled, and he has never seen a Nazgul before. He has heard tales, of course, of the black riders that haunted the north, of the 9 that rode with Sauron's hosts. He had thought those tales distant, half legend. Now one of the 9 hangs in the sky above his home, and his hand shakes so hard that he can barely hold his bow. Beside him, an older man, his father, grips the parapet. "Do not look at it," he mutters. "Look at the ground, at your feet, at the river. Do not meet its eyes." Marshaled cannot look away. He sees the Nazgul raise its arm, sees the shadow of a blade gather darkness. He thinks of his mother, of his little sister hiding in the cellar beneath their house. He thinks of the stories of kings, of Elendil and Isildur, of battles long ago. He thinks of the man below with the shining sword, standing against the terror that has turned stronger men than Marshaled to flight. His hand steady, he lifts his bow. He does not aim at the Nazgul, that is beyond him. He aims at the winged beast's eye, a small glistening target. He draws, breath held, and looses. The arrow flies. On the field, Aragorn feels the shadow of the Nazgul's blade gather above him. He lifts Andúril, ready to meet it, though he does not know if even this sword can turn aside a blow of such malice. Then, with a scream that tears the sky, the winged beast convulses. Marshaled's arrow strikes its eye, sinking deep. Black ichor spurts. The creature thrashes, its wings flailing. The Nazgul, caught off guard, lurches. The weight of its terror falters just for a heartbeat. Aragorn seizes that heartbeat. He surges forward, every muscle burning, and hurls Andúril like a spear. The sword spins, a flash of white flame against the dark, and strikes the winged beast's throat. It bites deep, severing sinew and bone. The creature's scream cuts off in a choking gurgle. It tumbles from the sky, its wings folding, its body twisting. The Nazgul flails, its form flickering. They crash to the ground in a spray of mud and blood. Silence falls, stunned. Then the Nazgul rises. Its beast lies still, its neck a ruin, Andúril buried to the hilt in its flesh. The wraith itself is unharmed by such crude means. It stands, its shadowy form taller than any man, its presence a cold void. It looks at Aragorn. "You have some skill," it hisses. "It will avail you nothing." It steps forward. Aragorn has no sword. For a heartbeat, a flicker of panic sears him. Then he hears a shout. "Aragorn, Halbarad!" The ranger hurls his own blade, a long, straight sword with a plain hilt. Aragorn catches it by reflex, the weight familiar, though it is not Andúril. He turns as the Nazgul strikes. The clash is like the meeting of ice and fire. The Nazgul's blade is not solid, yet it has weight. It presses down with a force that seems to seep into Aragorn's bones, seeking to sap his strength, to numb his limbs. His arms tremble as he holds it back. "Yield," the wraith whispers, its voice a cold wind in his ear. "Cast aside your sword. Bow. There is no hope. The south will burn. The city will fall. The ring will be found. All your labors are dust." Images flash before Aragorn's eyes. Minas Tirith in flames, the fellowship broken, Frodo lying dead in some dark ravine, the ring in Sauron's hand. His heart lurches. He thinks of the child beneath the cart, asking if the city will hold. He thinks of Boromir, dying with arrows in his chest, whispering that he had failed his city. He thinks of Arwen, her face in the twilight of Rivendell, her hand in his. "I would rather share one lifetime with you," she had said, "than face all the ages of this world alone." He thinks of her choice. of the weight she has taken upon herself for his sake. He tightens his grip. "No," he says through gritted teeth, "you will not have this world, not while I still draw breath." He twists, pushing the Nazgul's blade aside, and steps in, slashing. The wraith recoils more from surprise than from pain. Its form flickers where the sword passes, a thin line of nothingness. It laughs, but there is a crack in the sound. On the wall, Mardil stares, awe and terror warring in his heart. His father grips his shoulder. "You see, even the great ones can be hurt. Keep shooting." Mardil nods, his throat dry, and reaches for another arrow. On the deck of the ship, Caranthor watches, eyes narrowed. He had expected the Nazgul to sweep the field, to crush this northern upstart. Instead, he sees the heir of Isildur holding his ground, sees fear in the movements of the wraith. A strange feeling stirs in him, something old and buried, a flicker of pride, of kinship. He crushes it. He touches the iron ring on his finger, feeling its cold bite. "My lord," he calls softly, "shall I lend my hand?" The Nazgul does not answer. It is too intent upon the man before it. Caranthor smiles thinly. He raises his own sword, and the shard of dark crystal in its hilt flares faintly, drinking the light. He whispers a word in a harsh tongue taught to him in the dark halls of Mordor. On the field, Aragorn suddenly staggers. A lance of cold pain stabs through his chest, as if a hand has reached inside and squeezed his heart. His vision blurs. The Nazgul's form swells, its shadow deepening. "What?" Aragorn gasps. The wraith laughs, a sound of triumph. "Did you think you fought only me?" It hisses. "The Lord of Gifts has many servants." It strikes. The blade passes through Aragorn's mail, through flesh, through bone, yet leaves no wound. It is not a cut of steel, but a wound of spirit. Agony explodes in Aragorn's mind. He falls to his knees, the borrowed sword slipping from his fingers. He hears voices, distant and echoing, Gimli shouting his name, Legolas crying out, Halbarad swearing in a voice raw with fear. He feels the Nazgul's presence close upon him, cold and vast. "Die," it whispers, "die, and let your line end here, in the mud of an unimportant river town. Let the hope of men perish with you." A shadow falls across him. Not the shadow of the wraith. Halbarad stands between Aragorn and the Nazgul, his own sword raised, the banner of Elendil unfurled in his other hand. The white tree and 7 stars blaze against the gloom, catching what little light remains. "Not while I live," Halbarad says, his voice steady. "You will not touch him." The Nazgul hesitates, its form recoiling slightly from the banner. Symbols have power, even in this dark age, and this is an old one, woven with care and hope. "You are nothing," it snarls. "A lesser man, a shadow of a shadow." Halbarad smiles, a small, fierce curve of the lips. "I am a Dunedain," he says. That is enough. He steps forward. The clash is brief. Halbarad is skilled, but he is no Aragorn. And the Nazgul is a terror from an older world. Its blade moves with inhuman speed. It strikes heavy with malice. Yet Halbarad does not yield. He parries, he blocks, he stumbles and recovers. The banner whips in the wind, its staff clutched in his left hand, even as he fights with his right. "Fall," the wraith hisses, "fall, and let your foolish loyalty die with you." Halbarad's breath comes harsh. His arms ache. He knows he cannot win. He knows he will die. He looks down at Aragorn, at his friend, his chieftain, the man he has followed through wilds and wars. He thinks of long nights under the stars, of quiet conversations by the fire, of shared laughter in rare moments of peace. He thinks of the child in the village, of the faces of the men of the South who have taken up arms because this northern stranger asked them to. He thinks of the world that might be if Aragorn lives. "I have followed you all my life," he says softly, so low that only Aragorn hears. "I will not leave you now." He raises the banner high. "For the Dunedain," he cries. "For the king." The Nazgul strikes. The blade of shadow passes through Halbarad's chest. He stiffens, eyes wide, then smiles once more. "Stel," he whispers, "hope." Then he falls. The banner of Elendil falls with him, its white tree stained with mud and blood. Silence crashes down, heavy and absolute. Something breaks in Aragorn's mind. The pain of the Wraith's wound, the weight of the despair, the sight of Halbarad falling, all fuse into a single white-hot point. He reaches out, his hand closing on the staff of the fallen banner. His fingers curl around the wood. He pushes himself to his feet. The Nazgul recoils just a fraction. "You should be dead," it says, genuine surprise in its voice. No mortal can withstand a Morgul stroke. Aragorn lifts the banner. The white tree flutters, tattered but still bright. "I am not only mortal," he says, and in his voice is something that is not his alone. "I am the heir of Elendil. I am the last of the line of Númenor. I am the hope of men." He steps forward. The Nazgul steps back. On the ship, Caranthor's hand falters upon his ring. The shard of crystal dims. He feels something push back along the thin, dark thread that connects him to the Wraith. Something strong and bright and unyielding. For a moment, the sea seems to heave beneath his feet, not with wind or tide, but with the shifting of some deeper current. Fear, real and sharp, lances through him. He snarls, shaking it off. "Enough," he hisses. "End this." He raises his sword again, summoning the dark power within. On the field, Aragorn lifts the banner high. "Men of Gondor," he cries, his voice ringing, "see the standard of your fathers. Stand, stand, and fight." The men around him, who had faltered, who had nearly broken under the weight of the Nazgul's terror, straighten. Their eyes fix on the white tree, on the stars. They remember. They close ranks. They raise their swords. The Nazgul feels it, the shift in the hearts of men, the flicker of courage where there had been only fear. It snarls, its form swelling. It lunges. At that exact moment, Caranthor speaks the word he has been given, a word of unmaking. The shard in his sword flares, a spike of absolute darkness. The thin thread of power that runs from the Nazgul to him, from him to Sauron, from Sauron to the ring, tautens. And somewhere far away, in the black land of Mordor, the Dark Lord's attention flickers. For a heartbeat, Sauron looks. His gaze brushes the field at Linhir, the struggling Nazgul, the standing man with the banner. It brushes Aragorn's mind, cold and searching. Aragorn feels it like a firebrand laid upon his thoughts. The wound of the Morgul blade flares, the pain nearly unbearable. He staggers. The banner dips. The Nazgul surges, its blade rising. The men around Aragorn cry out. And on a small bare hill far to the east, a hobbit falls to his knees, gasping, the weight of the ring suddenly heavier than ever before. Frodo clutches the chain around his neck, his vision swimming. Sam's voice is a distant murmur, the rocks around him a blur. For a moment, the eye is upon him, full and terrible, sees him. Frodo's will buckles. He is so tired. Sam's hands are on his shoulders, shaking him, his voice urgent. Mr. Frodo, do not give in. Remember the Shire. Remember the party tree. Remember the gaffer." The words cut through the haze, small and homely and real. Frodo blinks. The eye wavers. Sauron's attention is torn. He cannot focus on both the hobbit and the man at the river. Not fully, not yet. He must choose for a heartbeat. The vast will hesitates, then it turns. The ring is the true threat. The heir of Isildur is dangerous, but without the ring, all men will fall in time. The Nazgul is strong enough to deal with him. Sauron's gaze withdraws from Linhir, slamming back upon Frodo. The weight on Aragorn's mind lifts, just enough. He straightens, the banner rising once more. The Nazgul's blade, already in motion, wavers. It is a small falter, a fraction of a heartbeat. It is enough. From the wall, Mardil looses another arrow. It flies straight and true, not at the Nazgul, not at its beast, but at the hand that grips its sword. The arrow passes through the wraith's form, but something of its intent, its courage, its defiance carries. The Nazgul's grip falters, its blade dips. Aragorn steps in. He drives the staff of the banner forward, not as a weapon, but as a symbol, as a focus of will. The white tree strikes the Nazgul's shadowy chest. There is no physical impact, no sound of wood on armor, yet the wraith recoils as if struck by a hammer. A crack runs through its form, a line of emptiness. It screams. Its voice is a shriek of rage and disbelief, of ancient fear. The men around Aragorn clap their hands to their ears. Some fall, yet they do not flee. The Nazgul staggers back, its form flickering. "You cannot kill me," it hisses, its voice fraying. "No mortal blade can slay me." Aragorn's eyes burn. "I do not need to kill you," he says, "only to break you." He lifts the banner again. Behind him, the men of Gondor raise their voices. "For the king!" they shout. "For the king!" The words roll across the field, a wave of sound. The Nazgul shudders. Its form wavers, thinning. It feels something it has not felt since the fall of its first master. The weight of many mortal wills united, pushing back against it. It cannot stand. With a final, furious shriek, it dissolves. Its cloak and crown fall to the ground, empty. The shadow that was its body scatters, torn to tatters by the wind. Silence falls. Then a roar rises from the men of Gondor, wild and exultant. The terror that had gripped their hearts breaks like a dam. They surge forward, crashing into the corsairs with renewed fury. On the ship, Caranthor reels. The thread of connection snaps, lashing back upon him. He staggers, clutching his head. The shard in his sword goes dark. For a moment, he sees not the field of Linhir, not the men dying for a cause he has long since abandoned, but the white towers of Dol Amroth, the sun on the sea, his father's face. He sees himself as he might have been had he never taken the ring. He snarls, forcing the vision away. "Fools!" he spits, all of them, clinging to a dying world. He straightens, his face hard. "Signal the reserves," he snaps. "We will take this town if we must drown it in blood." The battle at Linhir rages on. Aragorn stands amidst it, the banner in one hand, Halbrad's fallen sword in the other. His body aches. The Morgulwound burns like a brand. Halbrad's still form lies at his feet, and he dares not look down. He cannot. If he does, he will break. He fights. Everywhere he goes, men rally. The corsairs, robbed of their wraith's terror, fight hard, but they are no longer invincible. They fall one by one to Gondor's blades. Gimli's axe rises and falls, his beard matted with blood. Legolas moves like a pale shadow, his arrows never missing. The Grey Company is a storm. Their long practice in the wilds now turned to the defense of a land not their own. The sun sinks. The river runs red. At last, as the first stars appear, a horn sounds from the south. Aragorn looks up, blinking sweat and blood from his eyes. On the ridge above the town, banners appear. The swan ship of Dol Amroth, the green of Losernach, the black and silver of the lords of the Ringlow Vale. Imrahil rides at their head, his armor gleaming even in the dim light, his helm crested with white. His knights thundered down the slope, lances leveled, voices raised in a cry that splits the air. For Dol Amroth, for Gondor, they crash into the flank of the Corsair line like a hammer. The black ships, already battered by fire and arrows, begin to pull back. Some are aflame, drifting, their crews leaping into the river. Others, their decks slick with blood, struggle to disengage from the quays. Caranthor sees the tide turning. He bares his teeth. "Retreat," he snaps. "We have done enough here. The south is bleeding. The city will fall. Let the men of Gondor savor their little victory. It will taste of ashes soon enough." The Corsair fleet begins to withdraw, oars churning, sails unfurling. On the walls, men shout and jeer, some loosing futile arrows after them. Others simply sag where they stand, too exhausted even to cheer. Aragorn lowers the banner, his arms trembling. Imrahil rides to him, his horse snorting, its flanks dark with sweat. "Lord Aragorn," he says, his voice rich and formal, though his eyes are sharp. "So, the tales are true. I had heard of a chieftain of the north, of a sword reforged. I did not expect to find you here at my doorstep, holding my river." Aragorn manages a weary smile. "I did not expect to be here," he says, "yet here we are." Imrahil's gaze flicks to the fallen form at Aragorn's feet, to the banner stained with blood. "You have paid dearly," he says quietly. Aragorn's throat tightens. "Too dearly," he answers. For a moment, the two men stand in silence, the sounds of the dying battle around them, a distant roar. Then Imrahil straightens. "Gondor owes you a debt," he says. "I, Imrahil, Prince of Dol Amroth, pledge my house and my sword to your cause. Speak your will, my lord. What would you have us do?" Aragorn looks to the south, where the black sails withdraw, and beyond, in his mind's eye, to the white city under siege. "The Corsairs will regroup," he says. "They will strike again, or they will sail north to Minas Tirith. We must not let them. We must follow Harry and break them, and we must send what strength we can spare to the city." Theoden rides from Rohan, but he will be hard-pressed. If Minas Tirith falls, all this is for nothing. Imrahil nods. Dol Amroth will send what it can, but we have been bloodied today. Our strength is not what it was. Aragorn sways slightly, the world tilting. Imrahil reaches out, steadying him. "You are wounded," the prince says, frowning. "Not in body," Aragorn lies. "Only weary." Imrahil's eyes narrow. He is no fool. He has seen men touched by the black breath before. "Come," he says. "We will tend to your dead and your living. Then we will speak of what comes next." They carry Halbarad's body into Linhir, laying him in a small, hastily cleared chamber. Aragorn stands over him, the banner of Elendil folded in his hands. He cannot bring himself to unfold it. Legolas stands beside him, silent. Gimli shifts his weight, his eyes suspiciously bright. "He died well," the dwarf says gruffly. "If there is any justice in this world, his name will be sung in halls he never saw." Aragorn's voice is a whisper. "He should have seen them," he says. "He should have walked the streets of Minas Tirith with me. He should have seen the white tree bloom again." He swallows. "He followed me into every dark place, and this is where it has led him." Legolas lays a hand on his shoulder. "He chose his road," the elf says, "as you chose yours. You cannot bear the weight of every death." Aragorn closes his eyes. "Then whose weight is it?" he asks. No one answers. Night falls. In Minas Tirith, the gate breaks. Grond strikes one last time, and the great doors of the city shatter, splinters of ancient wood flying. The Witch King rides through the breach, his black horse trampling the bodies of the dead. Gandalf stands in his path, white staff raised, Glamdring in his hand. "You cannot enter here," the wizard says, his voice ringing. "Go back to the abyss prepared for you. Go back. Fall into the nothingness that awaits you and your master." The Witch King laughs, a sound like a blade drawn slowly over stone. "Old fool," he says, "this is my hour. Do you not know death when you see it?" They clash. The duel of wizard and wraith blazes at the gate, white light against black shadow, sparks fly, stone cracks. Men on the walls watch, breath held, as the fate of their city hangs on the edge of a sword. No horns sound in the distance, no black ships appear upon the river, bearing unexpected allies. The Rohirrim are close, but not yet upon the field. The south is embattled, its strength tied at Linhir and along the coasts. Minas Tirith stands alone. In the houses of healing, Ioreth looks up from her work, her hands bloody. She feels a tremor in the stones, a shudder that runs through the very bones of the city. "Sweet Valar," she mutters, "hold us." On the Pelennor, a lone rider of Rohan crests a low rise. Eomer reins in, his horse's flanks heaving. Before him in the distance he sees the white city, its lower levels wreathed in smoke, its gate broken, the hosts of Mordor swarming. His heart clenches. "Forth, Eorlingus!" he cries, his voice raw. "Forth!" Behind him, the Rohirrim answer with a great shout, their horns sounding. They charge. The sunrise catches their spears, turning them to a forest of fire. They will break the siege for a time. They will slay many. Theoden will fall beneath the Witch King's shadow. Éowyn and Merry will stand against the Lord of the Nazgul, and he will fall, for no man may hinder him, and he will be slain by a woman and a halfling. Some fates are stubborn, yet without the sudden turning of the tide from the river, without the black ships bearing a king, the battle will drag on. The Rohirrim will be outnumbered, encircled. Their charge will splinter against the sheer mass of Mordor's hosts. Gandalf, locked in struggle at the gate, will not be able to ride to Theoden's side. He will not snatch Faramir from the pyre in time. In the high tower, Denethor will burn. On the coasts, the corsairs, though bloodied, will regroup. At Linhir, Aragorn lies in a small room, his face pale, his breath shallow. The Morgul wound festers, not in flesh, but in spirit. Each breath feels like drawing air through ice. His limbs are heavy. His thoughts drift. He sees Arwen, her face distant. "Do not let the shadow take you," she says, her voice faint. "Do not leave me in this world alone." He tries to answer, but his tongue is thick, his mouth dry. The door opens. Imrahil enters, his face grave. "The battle goes ill in the north," he says without preamble. "Messengers have come. The Rohirrim have arrived, but they are sorely pressed. The city's gate is broken. The Lord of the Nazgul has entered. Gandalf stands against him. Aragorn struggles to sit up. Legolas and Gimli move to help him, but he waves them away, forcing his body to obey. "We must go," he says, his voice hoarse. "We must ride to the city." Imrahil shakes his head. "Your body is here," he says, "but your spirit is half in shadow. If you ride now, you may not reach the city alive, and even if you do, what then? You'll have no army. The strength of the south is scattered, blooded. We can send some men, but not enough to break the siege by force." Aragorn's hands clench in the blankets. "Then we have already failed," he says. "My choice at the mountain has doomed them." Imrahil's eyes soften. "Perhaps not," he says. "Hope is a strange thing. It can spring from places we do not expect." He hesitates. "There is a healer in the city," he says slowly. "A man of Gondor, learned in old lore. He sent a letter to me some months past, speaking of a plant called Athalas and of a prophecy that the hands of the king are the hands of a healer. He believed that if a true king returned, he could heal the Black Breath even from afar if his will was strong enough. Legolas' eyes widen. You speak of healing at a distance, he says, through thought and will alone? Imrahil nods. It is a wild notion, yet these are wild days. He looks at Aragorn. You are the heir of Isildur, he says. You have faced the Wraith's touch, and yet you stand. Perhaps there is a way for you to reach the city, not in body, but in spirit, to strengthen those who stand there, to turn the tide, not with swords, but with hope. Aragorn laughs, a short, bitter sound. Hope, he says, always hope. It is a small weapon against such darkness. Legolas steps forward. It is the only weapon that Sauron does not understand. He says he cannot see it in his mirror. He cannot grasp it. That is why he fears you. Gimli snorts. And besides, he says, we have tried swords. They work well enough on corsairs, but not so well on dark lords. Perhaps it is time to try something else. Aragorn closes his eyes. He sees again the choice he did not make. The dark road under the mountain, the dead following him, the black ships seized. He sees himself arriving at Minas Tirith in the hour of its greatest need, turning despair into joy. That road is closed. He has only this. What must I do? He asks. Imrahil reaches into his cloak and draws out a small pouch. He opens it, and the scent of Athalas fills the room, fresh and clean, cutting through the smell of blood and smoke. This was sent with the letter, he says. The healer believed that Athalas in the hands of a true king could be a conduit for his will, that through it he might strengthen those afflicted by the Black Breath, even at a distance. He spoke of a bond between the land and its rightful lord. He pours a few leaves into Aragorn's hand. They are dry, he says, but perhaps they will serve. Aragorn brings the leaves to his nose. The scent is faint, but as he breathes it in, something stirs within him. A memory of green fields, of rain on stone, of the sound of the Bruinen in flood, of Elrond's hands, gentle and strong, tending his wounds. He crushes the leaves between his fingers and drops them into a bowl of steaming water that Imrahil's men have brought. The scent rises, stronger now, filling the room. Aragorn closes his eyes. He reaches not with his hands, but with his mind, his heart. He thinks of Minas Tirith, of its white walls, of the Pelennor. He thinks of Gandalf, of Pippin, of Faramir lying in the houses of healing, of Éowyn and Merry, of countless unnamed men and women and children huddled in fear. He thinks of the line of kings, of Elendil and Isildur, of Anarion, of the white tree that withered and the one that might yet bloom. He thinks of Arwen, of the Evan star she gave him. He lets all these thoughts, all this love, all this grief flow into the scent of Athalas, into the steam, into the air. In the houses of Helin, Ioreth looks up suddenly. The air has changed. The sharp, bitter smell of blood and sweat is cut by something else, a fresh green scent, like a breeze from the sea, like the first day of spring. She inhales, eyes widening. What is that? She murmurs. A young healer beside her, exhausted, shakes his head. I smell nothing, he says, yet as the scent spreads, the groans of the wounded ease. Faramir's breath, which had been shallow and ragged, deepens. Éowyn stirs. Merry's face, twisted in pain, relaxes. Ioreth steps to Faramir's side, her hands trembling. Lord Faramir, she whispers, can you hear me? His eyes flutter. Far away in Linhir, Aragorn feels a faint answer. He pushes harder. On the Pelennor, Éowyn lies among the dead and dying, her arm broken, her body chilled by the touch of the Witch King's black breath. Merry curls against her side, his small form shivering. The battle rages around them. A shadow passes over Éowyn's face, not the shadow of a Nazgul. A memory. She is a child again, running in the golden hall of Meduseld. Theodwyn's laughter fills the air. Éowyn lifts her high, spinning her. Theoden watches from his chair, smiling. She feels sun on her face. She smells grass, horses, ale, wood smoke. She hears a voice, not of Rohan, but of Gondor, rich and deep. Lady of Rohan, it says, do not abandon this world yet. It still has need of you. She does not know the voice, yet it feels familiar. She opens her eyes. The sky above her is gray, filled with smoke. The Witch King's body lies nearby, crumpled, his crown shattered. Merry stirs at her side. Éowyn, he whispers. She draws a breath. It hurts, but she draws it. In the houses of healing, Faramir's eyes open. He sees Ioreth's lined face above him, and beyond her, the white ceiling. Am I in the city? He murmurs. Yes, my lord, she says, tears in her eyes. You are in Minas Tirith. You are saved. He frowns slightly. I dreamed, he says, of a king, a shadow of a king standing by a river, holding a banner. He called my name. Ioreth's breath catches. The hands of the king, she whispers. The hands of the king are the hands of a healer. On the walls, Pippin staggers, his head swimming. The black breath had been creeping over him, slow but sure, as he watched the Witch King at the gate. Now, suddenly, the weight eases. His lungs fill. The world sharpens. He looks up. The Witch King reels. Gandalf's staff blazes, white light pouring from it. The wraiths form shudders, its sword wavering. A horn sounds, not from the river, from the north, Eomer's horn. The Rohirrim crash into the flank of Mordor's host, their cry fierce. The Witch King turns, sensing the fall of his beast on some distant field, sensing the death of his brother at Linhir, sensing the sudden surge of hope in the hearts of men. He falters. Gandalf strikes. Light Seer's shadow. The Lord of the Nazgul screams, a cry that echoes from the Pelennor to the Black Coasts, from Minas Tirith to Linhir. Then he is gone. The gate stands, broken but unclaimed. The battle is not won. Far from it. The hosts of Mordor still swarm. The Rohirrim are still outnumbered. The Corsairs still threaten the coasts. Yet something has shifted. Sauron feels it. In Barad-dûr, the Dark Lord pauses. He had expected the fall of the city to be swift once the gate was breached, the Witch King within. He had not expected resistance of this kind, not from Rohan, not from Gondor, and certainly not from a man in the south who heals with his will. He turns his gaze again toward Linhir. He sees Aragorn, pale and sweating, sitting by a bowl of steaming water, surrounded by men of Gondor and a prince of Dol Amroth. He sees the banner of Elendil, stained but unbroken, resting across the knees of a fallen ranger. He feels a flicker of something that he has not felt in a long age. Unease. He tightens his will. Very well, if the South will not break easily, he will break it with greater force. He sends new orders. The Corsairs are to regroup, to gather more allies in the south, to strike again with greater numbers. Harad and Khand will send more men. The war will not end with one battle at a river town. He also sends a thought to the Nazgul that remain, guard the Morannon, watch the north. The heir of Isildur will come if he lives. He must be broken before he can unite men. In Linhir, Aragorn slumps back, exhausted. Imrahil catches him. You did it, the prince says softly. I do not know how, but you did. Something has changed in the city. The messengers speak of the Witch King's fall, of Faramir's recovery, of a new strength in the hearts of the defenders. Aragorn's eyes flutter. How only lent what strength I had. He murmurs, the true work is done by others, by a woman of Rohan, by a hobbit, by Gandalf, by countless men whose names I will never know. He looks at Halbarad's still face. By him, Imrahil follows his gaze. He chose his road, he says again, as we all do. Days pass. The battle of the Pelennor fields grinds on, longer and bloodier than in the tale that is known. Without the sudden arrival of Aragorn's fleet, the Rohirrim and the men of Minas Tirith fight a desperate attritional battle. They win ground, lose it, win it again. Theoden falls beneath his horse, slain by the Witch King's assault, before the wraith is driven off by Gandalf's intervention and Éowyn's courage. Éomer takes command, his grief a fire that drives him. Gandalf moves where he is needed most, a white flame in the darkness. Faramir, though weakened, takes up arms again sooner than he should, his love for his city overriding his body's protests. Pippin and Beregond save Faramir from the pyre, though Denethor's madness consumes him and part of the steward's house. The White Tower's upper levels are blackened, but the city does not burn. The Corsairs, their first assault, blunted at Linhir, attempt to sail north along the Anduin. Yet the river is treacherous, and the men of Gondor, warned and roused, harry them from both banks. Imrahil leads sorties from Dol Amroth, striking at their flanks. Aragorn, weakened but recovering, rides when he can, directing defenses, inspiring men. He cannot fight as he once did, but his presence alone is a banner. Word spreads through the south. The heir of Isildur stands with them. Men who had thought themselves abandoned take up arms. The southern shield of Gondor bends, but it does not break. In Minas Tirith, after long days of battle, the horns of Mordor fall silent. Sauron has drawn back his forces from the immediate assault, not in defeat, but in calculation. He has lost his chief lieutenant. He has expended much strength. The Rohirrim still stand. Gondor still stands. The heir of Isildur lives. Yet he holds Osgiliath. He holds much of the Pelennor. His armies have not been destroyed, only bloodied. He can afford to wait. The ring is still abroad. In the houses of healing, Aragorn's name is whispered. Ioreth, never one to keep a story to herself, tells anyone who will listen of the scent of Athelas that filled the air, of Faramir's awakening, of the prophecy of the king's hands. Mark my words, she says, wagging a finger. There is a king in Gondor again, whether he sits on the throne yet or not. I felt it in my bones. Faramir listens, his face thoughtful. He has dreamed of the man by the river more than once now. He goes often to the walls, looking south, wondering when or if that man will come to the city in person. Éowyn, her arm in a sling, walks the gardens of the houses. She feels restless, her warrior's heart chafing at stillness, yet she also feels something else, an odd kinship with this unseen king who healed her, who chose a different road than prophecy laid. She wonders what he is like. Far to the east, Frodo and Sam struggle across the ashen wastes of Mordor. The eye's attention has been divided, pulled between the battles in the west and the small, persistent ache of the ring, moving ever closer to Mount Doom. Sauron had not expected such resistance in Gondor. He had not expected his southern flank to hold. He had not expected a man to reach out with healing rather than with a sword. He is wary now. He gathers his strength, preparing for a final blow. In Minas Tirith, a council is held. Gandalf, weary but unbowed, sits with Faramir, Éomer, Imrahil, and a few other lords. The room smells of smoke and ink. Maps are spread upon the table, marked with red and black. The city cannot withstand another full assault, Faramir says. Our walls are cracked. Our people are exhausted. Our food stores are low. Omer nods grimly. Rohan has spent much of its strength on the Pelennor, he says. We can fight again, but not as we did. If Sauron brings all his might to bear, we will be swept aside. Imrahil looks south. The coasts are not secure, he says. The corsairs still raid, though we have bloodied them. If we strip the south of men to defend the city, we leave our homes open to ruin. Yet if we do not, Minas Tirith may fall, and with it all Gondor. They look to Gandalf. The wizard's eyes are shadowed, but there is still a spark in them. We cannot win this war by strength of arms alone, he says. We never could. Our task is not to defeat Sauron in open battle. It is to give the ring-bearer time. Every day that Minas Tirith stands, every hour that the South holds, is another step Frodo and Sam can take toward the mountain. He pauses. In another telling of this tale, he says slowly, Aragorn would have taken the paths of the dead. He would have come to this city in black ships, turning despair into joy in a single stroke. That road is closed to us now, yet his choice has not doomed us. It has changed the shape of our hope. Faramir leans forward. What then do you counsel? He asks. Gandalf looks to the east, where the mountains of shadow loom. We must draw Sauron's eye, he says. We must march on the Black Gate. A murmur runs around the table. Madness, one lord whispers. Suicide, perhaps, Gandalf says. But it is a madness with purpose. If we gather what strength remains to us, if we march openly on the Morannon, Sauron will see it as a challenge he cannot ignore. He will turn his gaze upon us, upon Aragorn, upon the banner of Elendil. He will pour his wrath upon the west. He looks at each of them in turn, and in that hour, when his eye is fixed upon us, the ring-bearer may slip by unnoticed. It is a slender hope, but it is a hope. Elmer's hand tightens on the hilt of his sword. Rohan will ride, he says. We have followed Theoden into darkness. We will follow this road also. Imrahil nods. Dol Amroth will send knights, he says. We have seen Aragorn's courage. We will not let him stand alone at the Black Gate. Faramir looks south, toward Linhir, toward the man he has never met, who nonetheless has touched his life. Gondor will answer, he says. We will send what men we can spare. I will go myself. Gandalf shakes his head. No, he says gently. Your duty is here. The city will need a steward, whether a king returns or not. He smiles faintly, and I think he will. Messages are sent. Swift riders bearing word to the south. In Linhir, Aragorn stands upon the riverbank, the banner of Elendil furled at his side. The wind off the water is cool, carrying the scent of mud and reeds and distant sea. A rider from Minas Tirith dismounts, breathless, and bows low. My lord Aragorn, he says, I bring word from Gandalf the White and from the lords of Gondor and Rohan. They intend to march upon the Black Gate to draw Sauron's eye, to give the ring-bearer a chance. Aragorn's eyes close for a moment. He had known in his heart that it would come to this, that in the end they would have to stake everything on one desperate throw. What do they ask of me? He says. That you come, the rider says simply, with what men you can, that you stand at the head of this host as the king you are, whether or not you have yet claimed the crown. Aragorn looks south, toward Dol Amroth, toward the scattered villages and towns of Lebanon and Lossarnach. The south is not safe. The corsairs still lurk. Haradrim raiders still test the borders. To strip this land of men now would be to invite ruin. He looks north, toward Minas Tirith, toward the broken gate, the scarred walls, the people who whisper his name. He looks east. though he cannot see beyond the mountains, toward Mordor, toward the Black Gate, toward a small, tired hobbit and his steadfast companion. He feels Halbarad's absence like an ache. He feels the Morgul wound, a dull throb that will never fully fade. He feels the weight of every choice he has made. Legolas and Gimli stand beside him. "You know what you must do," Legolas says quietly. Gimli grunts. "Aye," he says, "and we will be right there with you, even if it is straight into the maw of that cursed gate." Imrahil rides up, his horse's hooves splashing in the shallows. "Dol Amroth will send a company," he says. "We cannot spare more, but we will not let you go alone." Aragorn nods slowly. "We will leave a garrison here," he says, "and at Dol Amroth, enough to hold the line, to give warning if the corsairs return. The South must fend for itself as best it can. The fate of all depends now on what happens at the Black Gate." He looks at the rider. "Tell Gandalf I will come," he says. "Tell him the heir of Isildur will stand with him at the Morannon." The rider bows, relief and fear mingling in his eyes. He mounts and rides north. Aragorn watches him go, then turns to the river. The water flows, indifferent, bearing away the blood and ash of battle, carrying them toward the sea. He thinks of another river, long ago, where Isildur had been ambushed, the ring slipping from his finger as he fled, the current taking it. History is a river, he thinks. It flows where it will. Yet sometimes a stone can change its course. He had not taken the paths of the dead. He had not seized the black ships. He had not come to Minas Tirith in a blaze of sudden hope. He had stood at a small river town and broken a Nazgul. He had healed in some strange fashion from afar. He had bent the river just a little. Now he would walk into the storm. The host that marches from Minas Tirith toward the Black Gate is smaller than in the tale that might have been. Many men have fallen on the longer, bloodier Pelennor. The South cannot send as many as it would, its strength tied in coastal defenses. Yet those who go are resolute. Eomer rides at the head of the Rohirrim, his hair streaming. Imrahil's knights of Dol Amroth ride beside them, their swan banners bright. Behind them march men of Gondor, of the Pelennor, of Lossarnach and Lebanon, of the Ringlow Vale. Hobbits walk among them, Pippin in his livery of the guard, Merry still pale but determined. Gandalf rides upon Shadowfax, his white robes stained with smoke. Beside him, at last, rides Aragorn. He has come north with a company of the Grey Company that remains, with a handful of southern lords who have pledged to him with a banner repaired as best it can be. He wears no crown, yet when he passes, men bow their heads. Faramir, standing upon the walls, watches them go. "Go with them," Ioreth whispers, though she knows he cannot hear. "Go with them, whoever you are. Bring them back." Éowyn stands beside him, her arm still in a sling, her eyes on Éomer. "Will he return?" she asks softly. Faramir looks at her, at the fear and hope in her gaze. "I do not know," he says. "But I think the world will not end while that man rides." They share a small, fragile smile. The host reaches the Black Gate. The Morannon looms before them, iron and stone and darkness. The air smells of ash and sulfur. The sky is a sickly, oppressive gray. Aragorn rides forward, the banner of Elendil unfurled at his back. He calls out, his voice ringing, offering terms that he knows will not be accepted, naming himself as king, challenging Sauron to single combat. The mouth of Sauron emerges, mocking, cruel. He shows them the mithril coat, Frodo's cloak, the short sword, spinning lies of the ring-bearer's capture and torment. Despair washes over the host. Aragorn's heart stutters. For a moment, He sees Frodo in chains, sees Sam dead, sees the ring in Sauron's hand. Then he remembers the scent of Athelas, the way Faramir's mind had answered his. He remembers Eowyn's awakening, Merry's breath. He remembers that Sauron lies. He rides forward and takes the hobbit's gear from the mouth's hands. "These I will take," he says, his voice cold, "in memory of my friends. But I do not believe your words." He turns, lifts the banner high. "For Frodo?" he says softly. He rides back to his place. Gandalf's eyes meet his. There is a question in them. Aragorn nods. They know what they must do. The host of the West advances. The battle before the Black Gate is a storm of iron and fire. They are outnumbered, hopelessly. Trolls and orcs and men of the east and south swarm. The Nazgul wheel overhead, fewer now, but still terrible. Yet the men of the West stand. Homer fights like a man possessed, his sword singing. Imrahil's knights hold the line. Gimli cleaves orc necks. Legolas' arrows never miss. Pippin, small and terrified, finds himself face to face with a troll. He stabs, more in desperation than skill, and by some miracle, the blade finds a gap in the armor. The troll falls, crushing him. Darkness takes him. Aragorn stands at the forefront, the banner of Elendil snapping above him. The Nazgul swoop, their cries piercing. He feels their terror, but he has faced it before. He has broken one of them. He holds his ground. He lifts his sword. Anduril returned to him after Linhir, its blade reforged again if need be, its fire undimmed. He calls out, not to the enemy, but to the small, distant presence he has never seen, but has come to trust. "Frodo," he says under his breath, "if you can hear me, if there is any strength I can send you, take it. Take it all." He feels nothing, no answering tug, no flash of connection. He fights anyway, far away, in the heart of Mount Doom. Frodo stands upon the edge of the crack of doom. The ring is heavy in his hand. He has come so far through so much pain, so much darkness. Sam stands behind him, his face gaunt, his eyes hollow. "Go on, Mr. Frodo," he whispers. "Do it. Let us end it." Frodo looks at the ring. It glows faintly, its inscription of fire he can see now, even without flame. He hears a voice, soft and seductive. "I am your burden," it says, "your purpose. Without me, what are you? Cast me away, and you cast away all that you have become." He raises his hand. "I will not do this deed," he says. He puts the ring on. In another tale, that moment would be the end. The failure, the triumph of the ring. Gollum would bite Frodo's finger, fall, and the ring would be unmade despite the ring-bearer's weakness. Here, at the very brink, something is different. Sauron's eye is upon the Black Gate, fixed on Aragorn, on the banner, on the audacity of men. He feels the ring upon Frodo's finger, yes, but his attention is divided, his will stretched. He reaches, he finds not Frodo's mind, but a wall of stubborn hobbit resistance, worn thin but not broken, and behind that, unexpectedly, a faint echo of something else, a scent of Athelas, a memory of a voice that had called Faramir back from the brink, that had whispered to Eowyn, that had steadied Merry's heart. Hope. It is not Aragorn's will that reaches Frodo now. He is too far, too engaged in battle, his strength poured out on the field. It is the residue of what he has already done, the ripples of his earlier choice, the way he has shaped the hearts of men who in turn have shaped others. Faramir, who had dreamed of him, had spoken of him to his healers. Eorith, who had told everyone of the king's hands. The healers, who had used Athelas more freely, who had tended Pippin when he was crushed by the troll, who had whispered the king's name as they worked. All these threads, faint and fragile, rush against Frodo's mind in that instant. He hesitates. On the Black Gate's field, Aragorn feels a sudden, sharp tug in his chest, as if a string tied there has been plucked. He stumbles. Gandalf, locked in battle, gasps. The Nazgul shriek, their forms twisting. Sauron's attention wavers. In the crack of doom, Gollum leaps. He bites Frodo's finger. Blood spurts. Frodo cries out, the ring flying free. Gollum snatches it, exultant, dancing on the brink. He slips. He falls. The ring falls with him. Fire takes it. The eye screams. The world shudders. At the Black Gate, the hosts of Mordor falter. The Nazgul wail, their forms unraveling. Trolls clutch their heads and topple. Orcs break, fleeing in all directions, their will shattered. The ground heaves. The great towers of Barad-dûr crack, then crumble, falling in a storm of stone and flame. A great wind sweeps across the plain, hot and bitter, then cool. Aragorn drops to one knee, his sword point digging into the ash. He feels the weight of Sauron's will lift, like a mountain sliding from his shoulders. He looks up. The Black Gate, once so menacing, now seems merely a ruin of iron and stone. He laughs, a sound half sob, half joy. "It is done," he whispers. Gandalf's face is wet with tears. "Yes," he says, "it is done." Men around them stand in stunned silence. Then a shout rises, ragged at first, then swelling. Victory! They have no words yet for what has happened. They do not know the details, the small, grim struggle in the heart of the mountain. They only know that the shadow has lifted, that the enemy's will has broken. They know that they are still alive. In Minas Tirith, bells begin to ring. In Dol Amroth, in Lin Hir, in the smallest fishing village on the coast, in the farthest farmstead of Lebanon, people look up from their work, from their fear, from their grief. The air feels lighter. Children laugh, not knowing why. In the houses of healing, Ioreth drops a basin in surprise as a wave of relief washes over her. By all the valor she breathes, something has changed. Faramir, standing by a window, feels it too. He smiles. "The king has done it," he says quietly. Elwyn looks at him. "Which king?" she asks. Faramir laughs softly. "Perhaps both," he says. "In Lin Hir, on the riverbank, where so much blood has been spilled, the water flows on, indifferent. Halbarad's grave is a small mound marked with a simple stone. Upon it lies a sprig of athelas, green and fresh, though no one remembers planting it there. Aragorn will come here in time. As king, he will stand by this grave and speak to the friend who gave his life so that others might live. He will think of the road he did not take, of the dead he did not call, of the black ships he did not seize. He will look south at the coasts that still bear scars from the corsairs, at villages rebuilt, at children playing where once men died. He will look north at Minas Tirith, its walls repaired, its white tree blooming. He will look east at the empty space where Barad-dûr once stood, at the mountains now silent. He will know that his choice at the mountain changed the shape of the war, that it made the path harder, bloodier, more uncertain. He will know that there was no easy road. In this timeline, the dead never marched. The southern shield of Gondor cracked but did not shatter. Men bled where ghosts once would have drifted. The war was longer, the cost higher, yet in that longer struggle, something else grew. A web of small acts of courage, of healing, of stubborn defiance. A boy on a wall who dared to shoot at a Nazgul's beast. An old woman with herbs and gossip. A prince who pledged his house to a stranger. A ranger who raised a banner and died with a smile. Hope did not come in a single blazing moment from the river. It came in 1,000 small sparks, scattered across Middle-earth. Years later, when the tales are told in the halls of Minas Tirith, some will say that the king's greatest deed was at the Black Gate, where he stood against the hosts of Mordor. Others will say it was when he healed the sick with his hands, or when he took the crown with humility. In the quiet corners of the city, in the houses of healing, in the riverside inns of Linhir, in the markets of Lebanon, another story will be told of the day when the heir of Isildur stood at a small river town and faced a Nazgul without his sword, of the ranger who died to buy him a heartbeat, of the banner that broke a wraith, of the choice not to walk the paths of the dead. In the end, there is no one moment that saves Middle-earth. There is no single road that guarantees victory. There are only choices made in fear and hope, in darkness and in light. On a quiet evening, long after the war, King Elisar will stand upon the walls of Minas Tirith looking south. The wind will carry the scent of the sea, of Athelas, of stone warmed by the sun. He will think of the mountain, of the road he did not take. He will wonder for a moment what ghosts still whisper in the dark beneath the Duimorberg, waiting for a call that never came. Then he will turn away, back toward the city of the living, where children laugh in the streets and the white tree sheds its blossoms like silent snow. Far away, in the shadowed valley, the entrance to the paths of the dead will stand, silent and untroubled, the cold air seeping from it like a breath held forever. No footsteps echo within, no banners stir, only a whisper remains faint as dust on stone of oaths unfulfilled and a doom that passed them by. The dead wait still for a king who chose another road.